Hey everybody, this is Perch. Um, I never know how these videos are going to land. This feels like one that people will take offense to, but in my mind, it's kind of a happy message. It's a positive thing, but we'll see where it goes for all of you. Look, I think for all of us who are in comics, commenting about comics, thinking about comics, how can they improve? Where can they get better? What's working? How do we secure the stuff that's working? By the way, I don't think there's nearly enough video topics about that. So I'll throw in a challenge to kind of the thinking criticals of the world. I'll even throw a channel out to the Zach of the world. How do we secure the things that are working right? And keep in mind, this is not a plea for positivity. This isn't me going, hey, we need to talk about the things going well. That's not what I said. We need to talk about how to keep the things that are going well or expand upon them. This isn't meant to be a positive. In fact, in many cases in companies, there are these exercises that go on where people talk about, hey, we stumbled onto something good. How do we lock it in? Because if we don't, it's going to slip away from us. And I think this is a fascinating topic for more people to talk about, because one of the things comics kind of does notoriously is they get things right. And then it vanishes. So case in point, if you look at the House of X Powers of 10 that Hickman did, there was a world where that was good. And what was good about it? Well, it created mystery, it created stakes, it created urgency, it created a sense that, oh my God, there may be some real reason to read this comic. There may be some stress. If I don't read this comic, I'm going to miss out on, I don't know, we're going to miss out on the kind of the techno-organic takeover of the world. We're going to miss out on this imminent mutant threat. There's some aspects to this that are pretty big deal, and I need to read it. And that was the vibe that a lot of the customers got from House of X Powers of 10. So Marvel got something right in Hickman, in the art, in kind of the importance of the title. It felt suddenly, and if you're a wrestling fan, you might appreciate this, it felt like must-see TV. It felt like if I don't tune in, there's going to be some storyline development with the NWO or with DX or whatever it happens to be, and I'm going to miss it. And that, by its nature, is what comics needs to produce. It needs to produce that urgency, that slight anxiety that if I don't buy an issue, things are going to happen, I'm going to miss it, and I'm going to have to pay exorbitant prices for back issues. If you can create that vibe in comics, you've got a good thing going. By the way, Kirkman understands this. When he did Walking Dead, he very effectively, and to a lesser extent Invincible, but Walking Dead definitely have it. If I miss an issue, then there's going to be some shit that's going to go on with cannibals or zombies or something's going to go on, and I better buy every issue. I don't want to fall behind. It created urgency. It created, not every issue ends in a cliffhanger, just I feel anxious if I don't read all the comics. And that's what comics need. So House of X Powers of 10 did that. And then House of X Powers of 10 ended, and we got into the ongoing series, and all the other writers came in. And what was perhaps most, stunning in all that, now that a couple of years have passed, we can kind of look back on it. What was so stunning is how few people, how few comics kept that feeling going. The X-Men title that Hickman was writing, the main title, when he announced, like, hey, we're going to do a series of done in ones, immediately I'm like, ooh, that's a mistake. Because, we need to very badly create that sense of urgency. I can't miss an issue. And when you're doing done in ones, it's hard to create that feeling. And he kind of had that with the Children of the Vault, and then he came back and did a little bit more with the Children of the Vault. But in general, like, that was really the only sense of urgency he had going. He went down to by issue 2, he's doing the Gardeners, and there's that one issue where Professor X and Magneto had, there was a lot there that just kind of gave up on the premise that got people into the book. So I'm sorry, this is a bit of a kind of a detour here a little bit. But I'm asking people, what are the things in comics that works well or worked well, or there's a bright glimmer of hope, And how do you lock that in and keep it going? What are those things? Because I think comics often stumbles across good ideas and then proceeds to, forget about it. And because of the nature for how comics work and operate, oftentimes if the big publishers or even the indie publishers stumble onto something successful, they don't really realize it till 6 to 9 months later, in which case they pivoted to something else and they're trying to come back and reclaim it. But in effect, if you're the buying audience, if you're the customer, you got excited and then got disappointed, and then it's like, fool me twice, assholes, I'm not going to come back again. That's where a lot of this stuff goes. So, thinking critical, Wes, come on, pick up the torch. What are the things that are going well that need to be locked in and secured so they don't vanish? And this isn't meant to be a positivity video thread, but rather hey, how do you protect the instances where things are going well? But by and large, I think comics, look, a lot of us, if you're listening to this channel, you're either like my voice, which is highly, highly unlikely, or more likely, you kind of have an interest in comics. And for a lot of you, probably who migrate to this channel, the audience self-selects. This is a group of people who probably like the Claremont X-Men days, who like the subplots, who like the long-running series, who don't like relaunches and number ones, who aren't terribly excited about a lot of the new characters that come up. The shame of it is, if you read comics in the 80s and 90s, one of the fun parts was getting to know Monica Rambeau or Danny Ketch or any number of new characters that Marvel was creating. I mean, the New Warriors. What's funny, a lot of people online, I've noticed, have gravitated to the New Warriors as being an example of an amazing comic that, people got behind. Yeah, I was never that big a fan of the New Warriors. That's not a knock against people who liked it. It's kind of the magic of comics, is that we all get to like different things. But the New Warriors was not really ever my comic. It was fine. But one thing that I think it did represent was this idea that you could create a bunch of new characters, so you could put some momentum behind it. I mean, I did like the Thunderbolts. I like what they did there. I like the villains kind of, taking on different identities. Would they start to become heroes? Like, that was a clever little plot that got going there. And so there's been lots of examples where comic companies do the all new, all different, and it works. So why isn't it working this time? And, the thought process I have here is that the big difference, if you look at the kind of all new, all different Marvel, and you look at hey, we got a bunch of legacy characters, and right now, because of the sort of the ending of the Marvels, they try and recreate Iron Man, only with Kamala Khan. And the problem is Kamala Khan talking to Kate Bishop does not have the same gravitas as Samuel Jackson talking to Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. And so not only do you not have the same star power going on there, but you also, it feels like a retread of the kickoff to the Marvel Universe. And Marvel is definitely like they're kind of doing a wink. Hey, look, we're reminding you of how this whole thing got started, which, again, wouldn't be a bad idea if there were more stakes to it, but there's not. But we see this desire from the company to really turn the page and say, let's get some new characters in the mix and let's make them work. I think the big difference we have there is, if you look at Danny Ketch, you look at the New Warriors, you look at Sleepwalker, Darkhawk, some of the characters that are introduced in the 90s, some worked and some didn't. Some have survived the test of time, some haven't. In fact, most haven't. The difference is you don't have Marvel going, no, goddammit, you need to like Danny Ketch. You need to like Night Thrasher. Night Thrasher is the most popular character in all of comics. Why don't you like Night Thrasher better? Maybe you're wrong for not liking him better. That's the vibe Marvel is giving off. I don't know if they intend it or not. I don't know if they mean to do that or not, but that is what they are doing. That's the kind of the spirit of which they've come across. I've said it before. To me, when I think about all the kind of the, ways to solve the current comic dilemma, one of the things that I think Marvel or DC needs very badly is somebody who has an MBA and some marketing sense, who can come in there and go, hey, okay, you got a bunch of ideas all over the place, but we need to badly position them in a way that they can be successful. You have some things that are hits. You had, Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, somewhat worked. What's the extra step or two to make it really successful? I'll tell you this, it's not having her become a mutant X-Men. That is not going to do it. To too many people, the Kamala Khan is now a mutant. It feels a lot like the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are not mutants because, we don't like mutants at the moment because the movies aren't allowed to do that. We haven't bought Fox yet. Oh, wait, we just bought Fox, so now let's make them mutants again. Like, this is a kind of silliness that goes on in current comics, is they're chasing the movies when A, they don't need to, and B, the entire landscape of the movies is changing just as fast. It's an impossible thing to keep up to. But I know this video is a little all over the place, but if I look at the current landscape of comics, if I think about what people are talking about, what's successful, what needs to work, you just Marvel and DC badly needs that kind of business manager, marketing manager, portfolio manager who come in and say, guys, you have a lot of properties here. It's kind of like if you ever watched that Gordon Ramsay Kitchen Nightmare show where he comes in and every now and then he goes into a restaurant and he picks up the menu and there's like 500 things on the menu. And he's like, what the F are you doing? And the restaurateur, the person who owns it, always like, well, we've got a lot of food to a lot of different people, as some people like fish and some people like chicken and some people like steak and some people like curry. So, we can't take any of these items off because we got to appeal to everyone. And increasingly, that's kind of how I feel, Marvel and DC have gone. They've got some core winners in their portfolio. They've got some, tried and true tested characters, but they're trying to kind of vomit all of out simultaneously and really doing none of them well. It is that restaurant that's serving everything. And for all of you, kind of the people listening to it, the fans, customers, etc., you're just trying to consume something, and you've got Marvel publishing 80 to 90 books, and they're all kind of B and C efforts. It's hard to look at things like, there's a new Thanos book and there's a new Punisher book. And both of these books are, by and large, terrible. And it's not, it's not that they're offensively bad. They're just like, why do they exist bad? And, to where I started this video, with any of these books, do you pick them up and go, my God, I've got to read issue 2. I have to keep reading this comic because this comic I'm so excited to see where the next one goes. Do you remember, by the way, when Ultimates came out, the first version, second one too, to some extent, but the first Ultimate series, Brian Hitch, Mark Miller on writing, and there was an aspect to that title where you didn't know what was going to happen next. You were excited to see the journey, and it really pissed you off when there were delays. And, the Marvel's trying to pass it off like, don't you want to wait for great Brian Hitch art? Well, of course, but I'd also like to have my effing comic out on time. And I remember that was a frustration. People would come into my shop. Same thing happened, by the way, with Civil War and McNiven. And people are like, I don't want to wait for the next issue. I'm angry about these delays. They were angry about these delays because they wanted to know where the story was going. They're excited to see what was going to happen next. And that's the vibe that comics needs to have. It needs to have that sense of, where is this going? If I miss an issue, bad things are going to happen. Same thing. If I miss this episode of Nitro or Raw, I'm not going to find out the new storyline developments and I'm going to be left behind. I've got to tune in. I've got to pick up this comic. Today, are there any comics from Marvel and DC that have that feeling? When you pick up Thanos, number 1, or Punisher number 1 with Joe the Punisher, Do you feel like I can't wait for issue 2? No. I mean, look, I'm sure a couple of you do, but not many. Nobody's reading that comic going, I am going to find out. Like, I'm going online right now and I'm going to find out when issue 2 is, and I'm going to go to this. I'm going to make sure it's pre-reserved. I've got to know what happens next. No. And if comics can't recreate that vibe, then comics as serialized entertainment is dead. When I say dead, I don't mean comics are going to stop getting published. Of course, they're going to continue to be published, but the interest is not going to be there. You've got to have comics be must-read material. When this is, Mark Miller, kind of back to him again, he's really doing the same bit he's done for years. With Kick-Ass, with Empress, with Huck, with King of Spies, with Big Game, and all the other titles in between. And some he's done a better job with than others. I mean, the Magic Order, I really enjoy that title. Title didn't always feel this way. But with Big Game, you have a feeling like you have got to pick up the next issue. And you are urgent to find out when the next issue is going to drop. Because if you don't, it is, you're missing out. And that's what comics needs. And that's why his titles do generate interest and excitement. The challenge is he's doing his thing with, Millerworld and Netflix and not with Marvel or DC. And Marvel and DC need this hype. When you pick up Batman, Catwoman, War, do you feel like, oh my God, if I miss this next issue, I'm effed? You don't. You don't have that feeling. And until Marvel and DC can create that vibe, we're going to continue to play in the shallow end of the pool. Anyway, I put a bunch of stuff in this video, so tell me in the comments below, what do you want to pick up on this? Thanks for listening.